Hi everyone, this video is about the function of endocrine system. It's a quick review. It's not about the anatomy of the endocrine glands. That will be a separate video. So hypothalamus is the highest center of endocrine system, and it's part of the diencephalon in the brain. If you can see in this image, this is the thalamus and this is the hypothalamus. And hypothalamus is connected to the pituitary glands. And as you can see here, this is anterior lobe and this is posterior lobe. Hypothalamus is connected to pituitary gland through infundibulum. Hypothalamus secretes three different types of hormone. One is called regulatory hormones. The second one is oxytocin and ADH. And the third one is secreted from autonomic nuclei. The regulatory hormones are either excitatory, which increase activity or release of other hormones, or inhibitory, which suppress release of other hormones. Regulatory hormones are affecting the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Oxytocin and ADH, antidiuretic hormone, they are made in hypothalamus and then through the axons they go and stored in posterior part of pituitary gland or posterior lobe of pituitary gland. And the autonomic nuclei, there are sympathetic and parasympathetic nuclei in hypothalamus, and they are sending fibers to the adrenal medulla, and then adrenal medulla will secrete a different hormone, and when we get to adrenal medulla, we'll talk about it. So pituitary gland, we have anterior lobe and you have the posterior lobe. The anterior lobe have a few different hormones. The first one is growth hormone. During childhood, growth hormone increase mitosis and cell division, so it's important for growth. When a person becomes an adult and the growth stops, then growth hormone is important for glucose level, so it keeps the glucose level high in the blood. Prolactin is important for production of milk. This is during pregnancy and also in the first few months after labor, so that newborn can drink milk. TSH or thyroid stimulating hormone that stimulates the thyroid gland. ACTH or adrenocorticotropic hormone that is for the adrenal cortex. And then you have the gonadotropin, which is for gonads. You have two types of gonadotropins. One is called LH or luteinizing hormones, and that is affecting the testes and ovaries. For ovaries, important for ovulation, and also important in male for spermatogenesis, but FSH is more important for spermatogenesis in male, and the FSH is also important for menstrual cycle in women. As you can see, if a hormone has stimulating or tropic name in it, that is part of anterior pituitary gland hormones. Posterior pituitary gland, that doesn't make any hormone, but stores two different hormones, and if there is a need for it, it will be released from the posterior pituitary gland, because these two hormones are made in the hypothalamus. One is antidiuretic hormone, and that is absorbing water from kidney and intestine. And the other one is oxytocin, which is important for contraction of smooth muscles. The most important example is one is during labor, so it will cause contraction of uterus for the delivery of fetus. And the other one is a contraction of milk glands, so the milk from the mammary gland or from breast can come down and the baby can drink the milk. Pineal gland is in the brain, so it's part of the diencephalon. It's a small gland, produces melatonin, and it's important for sleep-wake cycle. In the later part of the evening, when the light goes down, melatonin is increased, and that's why you become sleepy. The thyroid gland has two different type of hormones. The first one is called thyroid hormones. Also is T4 or thyroxine, and the T4, when it goes to the periphery, becomes also, it loses one of the iodides and become T3, and it is important for increasing metabolism. So during childhood and during adulthood is very important. When the metabolism is slow, thyroid hormone is released, increasing body temperature by increasing production of ATP and increasing breathing, and also production of red blood cells. So the body temperature increase, so it has more oxygen to the cells. And then sympathetic activities increased, so the heart contraction and the blood pressure and heart rate is increased. If the level of calcium is high, calcitonin is released, and calcitonin usually brings the calcium level down. It's not a major effect of the thyroid gland. And as you can see in this image, the thyroid gland is located in the neck area, so below the thyroid cartilage and anterior, just a little bit, anterior to the trachea, and also these two lobes are lateral to the trachea. And this is also cricoid cartilage, so below cricoid cartilage. And the parathyroid gland, there are 4 of them. They are located in the posterior part of the thyroid gland. And if the level of calcium is down, it breaks down the bone, so-called bone resorption, and osteoclast activity increase, and that will cause increase in calcium level, also increase calcium absorption from the kidney, calcium reabsorption from the kidney, and calcium absorption from intestine. The thymus is located behind the sternum in the chest. It releases thymosin, and thymosin is important for the immune system, so stimulating lymphocytes, so it's part of the defense system. As you get older, the thymus gland regresses, and during adulthood does not have that much function. Pancreas has different cells, and as you can see, the pancreas is located below and posterior to stomach and between the 2 kidneys. So it is in the abdomen, and the posterior part of the abdomen, near the back of the abdominal wall. It has an alpha cell, so alpha cell produces glucagon. So if the level of glucose is down, alpha cells increase blood glucose. And it also has the beta cells if the level of glucose is high. For example, if you're eating something sugary, insulin is released, and that will bring the glucose level down. Pancreas also has other functions. These are called exocrine functions, and that is secreting pancreatic juice, which contains enzymes and bicarbonate. That is for digestion. So it's not part of the endocrine system, so that's why I did not discuss it. There are some other hormones also released from pancreas, but we can discuss it in a different time. Adrenal gland or suprarenal glands, they are located above the kidneys. There are 2 of them, so they are in the abdomen. The back part of the abdomen is retroperitoneal. So it has 2 parts. One is adrenal cortex, and the other one is medulla. Cortex is superficial. Medulla is located deeper. Adrenal cortex releases different hormones. One is mineralocorticoid. An example of mineralocorticoid is aldosterone. So if the level of sodium and body water decrease, blood pressure, blood volume decrease, aldosterone is secreted, and that will increase absorption of sodium and water from the kidney. The other one is a glucocorticoid. Example is like cortisol, corticosterone, and that will cause increase in the blood glucose, and the other function is to suppress immune system. The third one is androgen. So in both male and female during puberty, adrenal gland is important for development of pubic hair in boys and girls, and also sex drive in female. In male, the androgen from adrenal gland is not that important because testes produce a lot of androgens, but for female, it also important for sex drive. Adrenal medulla secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is also released from nerves, but here epinephrine, norepinephrine is released from adrenal medulla, that goes to blood, and then it goes everywhere in the body. And if the cells have receptors, then they respond to this. So epinephrine, norepinephrine increase breakdown of glycogen to glucose. Glucose will produce more ATPs, and that's important for contraction of muscles. Also, glucose can go to the brain, and the glycogen in the liver breaks down to glucose, and that glucose goes to brain. So brain uses that as a source of energy. Epinephrine, norepinephrine also cause lipolysis, and that fatty acids can be used as a source of energy for many tissues. Epinephrine and norepinephrine causing increased sympathetic activity, so heart contractility and heart rate increase, blood pressure also increase. The gonads, so male have testes and female have ovaries. Testes secrete androgens, and an example of androgen is testosterone. It is important for secondary sexual characteristics, for example, coarsening of the voice and growth of hair. It's also important for the musculoskeletal system, so for growth of bones and muscles, and participate in spermatogenesis. Female, the ovaries produce estrogen. An example of estrogen is estradiol. It is important for secondary sexual characteristics, for example, redistribution of fat and mammary gland and the hip area, and also estrogen participates in menstruation. And progestin, a good example is progesterone, that is important for maintenance of pregnancy. In early stage of pregnancy, later on placenta produce progesterone, so ovaries are less important. Also, adipose tissue produces leptin. Leptin is important for appetite, so it once you eat, after 20 minutes or so, the hypothalamus is suppressing the appetite centers, so you stop eating. Also, it's important for control of gonadotropin releasing hormone that is coming from hypothalamus, and that will affect the release of gonadotropin, which is coming from pituitary gland, and then gonadotropins are important for production of estrogen and progesterone. And kidneys produce calcitriol, and that will cause increased absorption of calcium and phosphate from intestine and from kidneys. And also it produces erythropoietin, which cause increased formation of red blood cells. So in case the person has hypovolemia, then aldosterone is released, that will cause absorption of sodium and water, and erythropoietin is released, that will cause formation of red blood cells, and that overall the blood volume goes back to normal. And that's it.